When the smoke cleared from the Second World War, the world was left with two surviving heavyweights, the United States and the Soviet Union. Almost immediately, they locked into a new kind of conflict. Both sides possessed nuclear weapons, making a traditional ground war between these two powers a path to total annihilation. They needed a way to fight without firing directly at each other. So, they looked up. The earliest rockets, like this captured German V-2 launching here, were repurposed by both nations to see who could dominate the skies above the atmosphere. To gain an edge, the Americans absorbed top German scientists. The man you see here, Wernher von Braun, quickly emerged as the center of the American rocket development effort. Watch this trajectory path. A rocket powerful enough to put a small object into orbit follows the exact same physics as an intercontinental missile. If a nation controls that flight path and replaces it with a warhead, they control the ultimate delivery system. This initial sprint for the moon was the high watermark of a struggle to control the Earth. Then came October 1957. The Soviets launched Sputnik 1, a polished metal sphere with 4 long antennas. As it circled the globe, it transmitted a continuous radio beep anyone could hear, confirming the Soviet Union achieved orbital capability before America even got off the launch pad. The Soviets pressed their advantage immediately. They launched Sputnik 2, carrying the stray dog Laika, secured inside a pressurized cabin. They proved a biological creature could survive the forces of launch and the vacuum of space. In April 1961, they dealt the heaviest psychological blow yet. The man in this portrait, Yuri Gagarin, rode a rocket into orbit and became the first human being to fly in space. First artificial satellite, first living creature, the first human. The unbroken streak of Soviet victories made American technology look inadequate. The U.S. needed a finish line they could actually cross first. That same year, President John F. Kennedy shifted the target. He stood before Congress and committed the nation to landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth before the decade ended. It was an audacious claim. Families watched on their living room televisions as the mission changed from simply reaching orbit to navigating 250,000 miles through deep space. Delivering on that promise required a massive mobilization. NASA assembled this network of engineers, scientists, and flight controllers, backed by nearly 5% of the entire federal budget. But the pressure to move fast exacted a terrible price. In January 1967, a fire broke out inside a command module during a ground test. The 3 men you see here, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, died trapped inside. The accident stripped away the polish of the space program. Winning the geopolitical contest carried a brutal, lethal cost. Despite the tragedy, the program pushed forward. In July 1969, this 363-foot-tall Saturn V rocket carried the Apollo 11 crew toward the moon. The final moments of the descent were harrowing. The lunar module's computer steered them toward a boulder-filled crater. With fuel draining to critical levels, Neil Armstrong took manual control and skimmed across the gray surface looking for a safe place to drop down. He found it. Hours later, Armstrong, pictured here in his heavy lunar suit, stepped off the ladder and imprinted the first human boot into the lunar dust. The Soviet Union had built their own massive lunar rockets, the N-1 series shown here on the pad, but their testing process was plagued with explosions, stalling their human lunar program and leaving them without a path to the moon. With the Eagle resting silently on the Sea of Tranquility, America ended the orbital panic of the 1950s. The Great Cold War sprint reached its conclusion. As the race cooled, the technology built for mutual destruction was repurposed. The rocketry intended for warheads laid the physical foundation for weather forecasting, GPS navigation, and the global communication networks we use today. In 1975, the rivalry produced an unexpected outcome. The two enemies launched spacecraft with a coordinated plan to meet in the vacuum of space. Look at this crew: American astronauts and Soviet cosmonauts, men who were trained to view each other as existential threats, docked their ships together and shook hands in orbit. Leaving the atmosphere forced both nations to look back at their world from a distance. The contrast of dead, cratered rock against the blackness of space provided a perspective of Earth that the politics of the ground could not offer. The billions spent on orbital rivalry, ultimately funded a planetary infrastructure that no single nation could have justified alone. We began the decade building better ways to strike each other, and ended it with the technical capacity to leave our world behind.